want to give a huge shout out and a thank you to my sponsor, P2 Collectibles, located at 204 East McGalliard Road in Muncie and on eBay as well. So next time you're here in Muncie, let us know. Come give us a visit. Hey, what is up, y'all? This is Alex from Plus3 TCG, and I'm coming at y'all with a card update. 7 of them to be exact. 7 cards you might not be aware of that are coming out in Extreme Force on February 2nd here in the TCG. Now, I know I've been gone for, 5 days now? Since last Friday. I have been pretty sick. I haven't really been able to talk a lot, and I finally have my full voice back, well, for the most part. And we are here to pick the schedule back up as regular. Now, back to these cards that I'm going to be talking about here in Extreme Force. These are cards for rogue strategy, a couple competitive potential strategies, but these are just cards that I am very interested in, and you should be too. So, without further ado, we are going to start with Partheon Shot. It's a counter trap that says at the end of the battle phase, it becomes the end phase of this turn. Now, this is interesting because we already have a counter trap card that takes you straight from main phase to battle phase, and that is Grand Horn of Heaven. So once you stop that first inherent summon, you can just immediately hop to the battle phase. And then if you already have this card set as well, at the end of their battle phase, which because they probably weren't able to summon a monster, you can just end their turn, which is very cool considering we are getting a counter trap structure deck, so this is a potential for that, as well as critical timing. When your opponent activates a spell, trap card, or monster effect while they have a card with the same name in their graveyard, negate the activation if you do destroy that card. Now, this is kind of relevant, but it's kind of for mid-game. Another counter trap, but it does have some merit to it considering that it can pretty much negate anything. The only stipulation is that it has to already have a copy of itself in the grave. So, for decks that run a lot of copies of a certain card, and if it's in the middle of the match, if you're going into grindy games, depending on what your deck you're playing, this is something that could go into there. Once again, we're getting that counter fairy structure deck, we're getting a lot of counter traps. This is something to consider, to pick up. Now, on to the next card. We have Sensor Differentiation. Each player can only control one monster of each type. Send all other face-up monsters they control to the graveyard. So a very cool continuous trap where it allows you to kind of control the field. If you're playing a lot of cards, a lot of monsters of just one type, you might be able to benefit from this. But if not, this is going to hurt your deck a lot. So one deck in mind would be potentially Spirals. But we have cards like this already, like Rivalry of the Warlords, things like that. So this is something like that card. Where we're going to be seeing in a lot of stun variants. Maybe not a lot of stun variants, but it is a potential stun variant strategy. On to the next card, we have Aster. Now this one I think is going to be seeing a little bit of competitive play in stun decks, considering that you can target one monster in your main monster zone and move that monster you control to another of your main monster zone. So if you don't have a lot of space on your field, you can pretty much just manipulate the field in any way that you see fit. This kind of reminds me, what's that new deck that's coming out that does that? You can like manipulate it. I don't know if it's Metaphys or the Jack Knight deck. One of the decks, you can move the main monster zone, so that potentially that could be another strategy for that deck. But as far as other decks, I think it has a lot of utility because you are allowed to move main monster zones. It doesn't prevent your opponent from targeting the monster. They still target the monster, but you are able to move on your turn, which is kind of relevant. Considering that there are now, well, I guess it could be on your opponent's turn too, considering that they're now column-based effects. So you can move that column-based, or that column monster out of the column where you think is going to be something that's going to activate. These are all just potential ideas for this card. I see it being played in rogue strategies and potentially some competitive strategies as well. Now, this one I'm kind of excited about, Downbeat. Tribute one face-up monster, special summon from your deck, one monster with the same original type and attribute one level lower than the tributed monster's original level. You can only activate one Downbeat per turn. So this is kind of like transmodifying the fact that we're trying to level up cards, but in this case we are leveling down cards. Off the top of my head, I can't really think of a lot of strategies this is going to go into, but the fact that we are getting another transmodify like card where it's a cool extender, and if you're playing something in the grave, then you need to get it there, and you have a card lower level, this might be a card you want to consider. Other than that, though, it is just neat to see that they are going in the opposite direction of like where Transmodify would level you up. Now we have a card that levels you down. So you have a lot more access to monsters in your deck if they don't have a lot of search power. Moving on, though, we get a new insect hand trap, Contacting Sea. Same stats as most of the Sea's Earth Insect Effect monsters. This is a 6-star with 1500 attack and 2200 defense. So it's kind of got a big booty. But it's more of just trying to block your opponent from doing stuff, because when your opponent normally special summons a monster or monsters, except during the damage set, you can special summon this card from your hand to your opponent's field in defense position. If you would fusion summon, synchro, exes, or link summon, you must use this face-up card on the field as material. So this potentially stops your opponent from doing a lot of stuff. Much like Flying Sea prevents your opponents from doing exe summoning, well, we all know that's not as good now because you can use it as link fodder. They cannot use anything else but this if they don't have any other monsters on the field. I don't see this card being super relevant, but I do see it stalling out a lot of people's plays, considering that you have to utilize that monster. So if you're playing a synchro based deck, this might not be the best card to give them, considering that they're probably going to be able to sync with it fairly easily. Link summoning, not as easy. They can use it for like maybe Deco Talker or things of that nature. So if you know they're gonna be link summoning a lot, this might not be the best card to put in. But it could stop them from making the correct play. Like if they needed to, if you're playing like, I don't know, like Gokis or something, they need Goki monsters, and if they can't use them, well, or if they have to use one of these cards, then it prevents them from making their monster. So it really just depends on what kind of link summon you're trying to stop and what kind of deck you're trying to stop, where this is going to see a lot of utility. And last but not least, this is the card that I think everyone kind of already knows about, but if you don't know about it, you need to know about this, because this is going to not change the game, but it's definitely going to highly influence the game, considering it's kind of a graceful charity on legs. So we have Skulldeep, the Chain Draco Serpent, correct me if I'm wrong on that name, Earth Dragon Link effect monster that takes 2 or more monsters with different names. Now, its link arrows are all over the place. Bottom left, bottom right, and top. So it is allowing your opponent to access some extra deck monster zone, but allows a lot more for you. But that's not so much about. It's more you're trying to end with this. Well, maybe not so much end with this, but you do want to end this on your field. And its effects are as follows. Oh, it's got a pretty big attack. It's also 2000. And this card gains effects based on the number of monsters used for. It's link summon. So 2 or more. If a monster is normal or special summon to a zone this card points to, that monster gains 300 attack and defense. So a little bit of aggro plays you can make with this. Once again, not as relevant as the rest of them though. 3 or more. Once per turn, you can special summon 1 monster from your hand. That's pretty relevant. We already have Firewall Dragon that can do that over and over again, but this card does it once per turn. Does it pretty well. And then 4, this is the one you want. When this card is link summon, you can draw 4 cards and place 3 cards from your hand on the top or on the bottom of the deck in any order. So that's pretty cool. Who cares? You're not going to see those cards. You're probably going to be searching for stuff anyways. So the fact that you're drawing 4 cards, and if you already had a dead hand, you can put dead cards back into your deck, which is great. That card is going to be very relevant, probably very expensive, but it's something that everyone needs to be aware of. Now, there are a lot of other cards that you could mention in this pack that are great, but I think those are cards that people are already prepared for, and I just wanted to bring to the light some cards that people might not be aware of, even though for the most part people know about Skulldeep. Weird name. Skulldeep is just a very, very powerful card that people probably are aware of, but if you're not aware of it, you need to. Very good card, but the rest of the cards are all just cool utility cards that you can pick up for probably pretty cheap when you pick up the pack. Let me know if you think I missed anything down in the comment section below, and this is Alex from Plus 3 TCG, signing out, y'all.